This Batmobile looking creature beside me is the Kia Stinger 300S, and it's the largest car besides an SUV in Kia's local range. It competes with the Audi A5 Sportback, Skoda Superb Liftback, and the BMW 4 Series Grand Coupe. It's a good looking car, but is it substance as well as style? I've been driving it for a week with my family to see how it suited our family life, so stay watching to see how it performed. We're going to get straight into the driving because you're probably most interested in that if you're watching a Stinger review. The 300S shares the same engine as the top spec GT model. I loved how growly it was when you turn it on. This was really nice to drive in the city, but the sports mode was a bit too jerky for me and didn't add to the experience. So I had this in comfort mode for most of the week. There's plenty of power and it still feels like there's power in reserve, which is great. The open road is where you can let it loose and feel that turbo V6 power. The cabin is also quiet, which was great. The only thing I noticed that I didn't love was the steering. It could have been better. Yes, it's responsive, but it's also quite firm. And I noticed, particularly at high speeds, that small corrections tended to result in bigger movements in the car, which I didn't love. The Stinger was easy to park and maneuver in tight car parks for a large, swoopy roof sedan. The reversing camera is clear, but I'd be cautious nudging into a spot with a park barrier because of how low the car is. At least until you got used to it, just so you don't scrape the front. I also like that you can bring up the camera view from the button in the middle console. Overall, you're not going to be bored driving this. You can expect a heftier fuel consumption given that this is a V6. The official combined figure is 10.2 litres per 100 Ks, and I managed 9.6 litres, which I thought was pretty good considering how most of my trips this week were in the city, with only one longer highway trip. That might be a reflection of my driving style though, and it is something to consider with the rising cost of fuel and if you live in the city. So, it's a pleasure to drive, but how has it handled family life inside? The first thing you notice about this car is how low it is. And while that's not bothersome by itself, the pronounced bucket seats and shallow floor does make this an awkward space to get in and out of. I would normally have this steering wheel a bit lower, but I can't manage that and get out comfortably at the same time. Would have been a really great feature if this seat slid back once you're in park, like it does on the cheaper 4-cylinder GT line and V6 GT models. Would have been nice to have that on the S models as well. The 10.25-inch touchscreen has been very easy to use, and there's a cool 80s vibe going on with the colouring in the apps. Annoyingly, all Stinger models only come with wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which means you have a trailing cable in an otherwise sleek-looking middle console. There's also no obvious spot for your phone when the cable's attached. I mean, this is quite narrow, the cable's in an awkward position, and this space, while it does fit the phone, with the cable attached, it's just not neat and tidy. The wide E shifter feels lovely under my hands. But interestingly, they've separated the park gear from the rest of the gears, so it's not as seamless as what it could be. It's a bit disjointed to use. Sometimes a black headliner can make a cabin feel a bit gloomy, but this one actually gives an edginess that just leans into that sports car vibe. Storage is about average in here. The center console and glove box are skinny and narrow, but you don't have a full manual in the glove box. You just have a QR code which you can download. Now, I've never been really fond of this. I prefer a hard copy manual, but then I do look at them far more than the average person. You have a bottle holder in each door, plus 2 cup holders. And I also like that you can bring up the camera view with this button here. The wide back doors gives the illusion that the opening is also going to be wide, but you have to fold yourself and duck to get in and out of this car. I hit my head a few times buckling in my 5-year-old this week, and while I might be clumsier than most, if you're tall, I'd say good luck enjoying strapping in a baby every day. Despite the small door apertures, there's still a good amount of legroom and an okay amount of headroom. It was also relatively easy to fit car seats in here, and front occupants will have plenty of room when a 0 to 4 rearward facing child seat is installed. The There's outboard ISOFIX mounts plus 3 top tether child seat mounts. And with the right car seats, you might be able to fit 3 across in here. But I can't imagine you want 3 little nuggets back here anyway, because buckling them up I think would get tiresome. The back seat is very comfortable though, and I like that you have fan and climate control on the directional air vents. You have one USB-A port, but you also have a 12-volt port for connectivity, which is always good. I really like this practical hard kick plate, which is always good for a family car. And I also like the armrest. It's a good height and it has 2 cup holders as well. All in all, an adult will be comfortable in this on a long trip, and my 5-year-old certainly had no complaints. The boot space isn't going to wow you. It does have a narrow aperture here and it's quite shallow. You can pop the back seats down and the space more than doubles, but that really only helps with gear stowage and not people. I was a bit surprised at this price point that this didn't have a powered tailgate, but the lid isn't too heavy to maneuver, so it wasn't too much of an issue. I also really like that this has an auto start function. So you lock the car, hold in the button, and it starts itself, which I think is a great feature, especially during the hotter months when you want to start cooling the car down quickly. I've given you a fair bit of information up to this point, so let's talk price. The 300S is second from the top and will cost you a little over $55K before on-road costs, which is good given that this is, let's face it, a sports car with heavy hitting competition that often starts at that price or significantly higher for just their base models. There are some lovely features in this model, like 18-inch alloy wheels with sporty red calipers, bronze chrome accents in the grille, quad exhaust, and that supple V6 engine. Being that this isn't the top model, you do miss out on some features, like heated and ventilated front leather seats, heated steering wheel, head-up display, and the premium 15-speaker sound system. But there is still enough here to satisfy most, especially considering that you jump up an extra 10 grand for the flagship GT model. There's no denying how sexy this is. There's a sports pedigree in the detailing, from the extra air intake vents at the front and the facade bonnet and rear vents. The bronze chrome accent against the black mesh grille really makes this pop out. And the protruding front reminds me of another thoroughbred, the Mustang, which speaks volumes on how much I like the look of this car. I particularly like the sloped coupe-like rear at the back. It's chunky and gorgeous, but I don't like that the lines from the doors has been carried across the roof because it makes this feel like the car's been separated into 2 separate parts. They've hit the mark with the exterior, but the interior doesn't really know what it is. There's some retro detailing inside with the air vents and touchscreen graphics, but then you have sleek curved lines on the dash and middle console. Looks are one thing, but if you're considering this for a family car, then you want to know how safe it is. The Stinger has a lot of good safety features you can expect to see on a car at this price point, including adaptive cruise control with driver assist and rear cross traffic alert, which is always handy in a car park. This has 7 airbags, which isn't groundbreaking, but as you'd expect, it does have window covering curtain airbags covering the back row, though not rear side airbags like some rivals. The Stinger has a maximum 5-star ANCAP safety rating, but it was tested a while ago in 2017. The Stinger comes with Kia's 7-year unlimited kilometre warranty, which is better than most in this class. There's 7 years cap price servicing, but services average at $606 per service, which is expensive. Servicing intervals are every 12 months or 10,000 Ks, whichever occurs first, but that's pretty painful if you put heavy Ks on your car each year. Because of the great driving performance and the beautiful exterior styling, I'm giving the Kia Stinger 300S 8 out of 10. That won't be enough for some because it is let down by some admittedly small interior design issues. It's hard to quell my son's enthusiasm for cars anyway, and this one's no exception. He thought it looked like the Batmobile and he gives it a 9 out of 10. If you're a driver who doesn't want to compromise on the driving experience, then this car will probably suit you. but I think you'll enjoy it more if you have older kids and you're not bending down to buckle them in. If you're after more details, check out the full review at the CarsGuide site. The link will be in the description, and I'll see you next week.